Okie doke. You were good.
Thank you, Colton. We're going to start with the Education Committee, and I have a script I need to read here because of our Zoom meeting, and it's 2.5 pages long, so if you bear with me, I'll get through that. Hello, I'm Patsy Zeller and serve as the chair of the Education Committee of the Kansas State Board of Nursing. I ask the members of the Education Committee to respond to a roll call signifying their presence at this remote open meeting by Zoom and YouTube. Carol Bragdon.
Here. Having trouble.
That's okay, no problem. Gita Noble, I got a note from her that she would not be present today. Christina Rudisil.
Present.
Karen Kidder.
Present.
Dee Blunenblust.
Present.
Amy Height.
Present.
Thank you. I also asked the following board staff members to signify their attendance. Janelle Martin, Nursing Education Compliance Officer.
Present.
Chelsea Stephenson, Education Secretary.
Present.
Public comment allows individuals to address the Education Committee about their concerns. However, the Kansas Open Meetings Act, which is known as COMA, does not require the Education Committee to provide public comment or answer questions from individuals. Public comment will not be taken today because there is a possibility that the connection for this remote meeting may be lost over time and the time for the meeting may not allow everyone who is present to comment. Additionally, we will not know what the comments an individual may make, and we would want to provide notice to the public of our intent to discuss a particular matter so that public may listen and observe our discussion. However, representatives from each nursing program will be allowed 5 minutes total to provide feedback when the committee discusses site visit reports and curriculum change requests for the respective nursing programs. Because we are conducting this public meeting remotely by Zoom and YouTube, I state for the record the following information. On March 8, 2021, the board sent notice to the meeting of the Education Committee to all individuals who have requested notice for the committee's meetings. Additionally, the notice and agenda were posted on the board's website, ksbn.kansas.gov. You may obtain a copy of the notice and agenda at that website or by sending an email to Carol Moreland at ks.gov with the subject line, request for the agenda, and the board staff will send it to you. The notice contains the internet links to access the meeting by Zoom and YouTube. The notice also contains a Zoom telephone number to attend this meeting by telephone call. All of these electronic mediums allow the public to attend the meeting free of charge. The notice also advises individuals to contact the board's office at 785-296-2967 if they are experiencing any technical issues during the meeting. The state of disaster emergency due to COVID-19 pandemic, as directed by Governor Kelly and extended by the Kansas legislature, will expire on March 31st, 2021. Because the requirements of COMA are not suspended, we will be conducting this meeting pursuant of COMA and KAR 16-20-1 concerning compliance with the COMA during the emergency declaration. The only mediums for interactive communication offered for this meeting are the connections by Zoom and YouTube as previously stated. Each member of the committee, board staff, or presenter shall state the person's name and title each time the person speaks or votes, as the case may be. Each participant to this meeting shall ensure microphones, phones, or other electronic devices are on mute when their participants are not speaking. Each motion will be clearly stated before the committee votes, and the chair will announce the results of the final vote. A statement or motion will clearly identify and authorize the delegation, each member of the committee or staff who will be permitted to sign any documentation on behalf of the board. The meeting is being recorded and recording will be posted on the board's website. The committee has the following items listed on the agenda. Call to order, review of on-site packet, additions and revisions to agenda, announcements, approval of minutes or the meeting held in December 2020, Nursing Education Compliance Officer Report, site visit reports, new business, unfinished business, petitions, Agenda for committee meeting in June 2021, adjournment. Although the agenda does not include an executive session, if the committee elects to exercise the option to go into executive session, the committee will follow this process. First, the board must be in an open session before going into executive session, and then a motion will be made and seconded pursuant of KSA 75-4319 little b. The motion must contain the statement of justification for closure. The subjects to be discussed at the time and placed in the open meeting will resume. If a motion for executive session passes, public will be excluded from this portion of the meeting, as the executive session will be conducted by electronic means that will not be made available to the public. The board members will return to the open meeting after the executive session. The open meeting will resume when the board members return to the Zoom and YouTube meeting after the executive session. The complete motion for the executive session will be recorded in the minutes. The meeting is now called to order, and the committee will now consider the next item on the agenda. The next thing on the agenda that I have here is I need to call your attention to an on-site packet. We do have one for the Education Committee this time. There's two things in that packet: a letter from community college presidents and a report of the task force for the partnerships and facility and nursing programs. There is a written report there. The next on the agenda is the additions or revisions to the agenda, and I have two of those. And if you have more, we'll take those after I read these. We need to add under new business the letter from the community college presidents. That will be after the I documentation that we have under new business. We'll address that. And I need to remove D under new business for University of Kansas graduate program, make it a curriculum change. That was put in there by error. Is that correct, Janelle?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that one I need to remove. Anything else we need to add or revise in the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, then I would, Chelsea is with us today, and she's going to have to interrupt me because I'm probably going to forget.
No problem.
So just wave or whatever if I'm forgetting. You have a motion for us.
Yes, I actually have two. So the first one, is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the addition of an education committee on-site packet.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion as second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. That motion carries.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the addition of the letter from community college presidents to the agenda beneath new business and remove number D, University of Kansas graduate program major curriculum change from new business.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
So the motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. The next thing on the agenda is announcements. Carol Moreland or Janelle, do you have any announcements?
I do.
This is Carol Moreland. I do not.
Okay, Janelle?
No. I do.
Okay, so we're going to move right on to the approval of the minutes, December 8th. Did anyone see anything there we needed to correct? I don't see any heads nodding or hands waving, so
Okay.
Chelsea has
there-
a motion. Thank you.
Yes, sorry. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the December 2020 Education Committee minutes as drafted.
I'll move.
I'll second.
The motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. The next thing on the agenda is the Nursing Education Compliance Officer Report, and that would be Janelle.
This is Janelle Martin, the Education Compliance Officer. I just wanted to draw your attention to a couple of things. The report's in the packet. We did give an Lmht exam in February. We had 7 graduates of the program. That program had been put on hold during some of the COVID pandemic, but they were able to go ahead and complete. And we had 3 graduates from the new campus at Larned. FQRs, I wanted to say you guys are all doing a great job on the FQRs. We're still having a little bit of issue with getting FQRs submitted with higher exceptions. And I just wanted to make a reminder that the higher exceptions need to come with an updated FQR. But other than that, I think we're doing really, really well. Let's see, I think I might have skipped page 1. I'm sorry. I did want to draw your attention. We've had several updates in administrators this year. And since December, we did get notice from Benedictine. They have a new director. Jackie Harris is with them effective December 1. Rasmussen University also has a new dean of their nursing programs, both the ADN and the Bachelor of Science, and they have a campus here in Topeka as well. Dr. Sharon White-Lewis is their new dean, and she has been there since January 11th. Wichita State, I think we made a previous announcement that Dr. McClary Jones was going to be moving to her full-time Associate Dean of the College of Health Professions, and that has happened on February 1. Deborah Pyle took over as interim School of Nursing chair there at Wichita State. Osteotomy State Hospital and the Lmht program have had several changes in the last couple of months. They have a new director of education, Susan Lynch, and Janet Batters, who was the director of the Lmht programs, took a new position. And so Brianna Bishop is their new director for the program for both campuses. And just a note that Hutchinson Community College, their PN program is suspending. In my report, it says closing. We got a letter and then a follow-up that they were not closing it completely, but just suspending it for now with the option to continue that at some point if those numbers would change. We were able to go ahead at December meeting. They decided that all spring site visit reports would be virtual, and we have done several of those. I somehow missed that we also did Salina Area Tech College. Their ADN program had a first year visit, a follow-up after graduation. We did that one as well. All of them have been done virtually. The administrators have done a great job of getting our virtual resource rooms ready for us. And I think that has gone really, really well, considering all the things that have to happen for that. But we really appreciate all the work that they've done to keep things moving and the site visits. We've also done 2 in conjunction with accreditation that have gone very, very well also. And so that's been great. Just wanted to I don't know if I've done this before, but we did have 8 petitioners who completed their conditions of their petition in the last 3 months. I thought that's kind of a record for me since I've been here. We do still have currently 24 active petitioners. I think we're going to talk about the annual report a little bit later, but we've been working on that new template, and we'll talk about that more under our unfinished business. The 2020 scholarship essay competition was completed. We will be introduced to the winners at the board meeting tomorrow. We ended up with 46 complete applications, which was an increase from last year. And so I thought that was also really good. I think one other thing that's not on there, but I just wanted to make a note. I have continued to get several questions regarding the use of simulation in place of direct clinical hours. COVID has, I know, created some of those issues. And I just wanted to clarify again what was stated at the December 8th board meeting, that the Education Committee is in agreement that regulation requires in-person clinical hours, and a student's course completion or graduation may be delayed if that type of experience is delayed due to the pandemic. So I just wanted to make sure that that gets clarified, that there still is an expectation that there are direct clinical hours for course completions. And a reminder, I think this came up once, that the proposed education regulations, this isn't in effect yet, but just to think forward a little bit regarding simulation, is that it will limit simulation to no more than 50% of clinical hours per course. That is currently how those regulations are written. And so there were questions, I think I've gotten several, about per course versus per program. So I just wanted to clarify that as well. And with that, Madam Chair, I believe that that will conclude my remarks about the report, unless there are questions.
Okay, thanks for that report. The next thing we'll go to is site visit reports. And the first thing listed on there is site visit report and approval task force report. There was a written report. Janelle, where was that housed, the task force? Was that at the end of your report?
Yes, it's at the very end of page 12 of your packet is that
Okay.
report.
So I just wanted to bring your attention to that. It gives some of the timeline and who has been working on this. There was a little bit of change in the task force members because of Coma Act. And so we adjusted that a little bit. And it shows there some of the information about those task force meetings. As requested last board meeting, last education meeting, when we made these task force, we said we would bring back written conclusion of some kind and an update, and that's what we've done with this. But I had a couple other highlights as a report of that I'd like to give you, just so you have a little bit of background of this, because some people may not understand exactly what's happening here or some of the history with this. I have a little bit here, so if you'll bear with me, I'm going to go through a few points. We took this on, and as you can see by the written report, started with some algorithms drafted for the consistency and fairness for all schools. We needed to document and help give the school some guidance and expectations and processes for maintaining approval, a process for nursing programs. I just wanted to help explain why this is such a huge undertaking for us and why it's very important to maintain this high quality nursing schools in the state of Kansas. And there were several different areas of concern, and some of those are noted on the list, almost exactly what I'm going to read here, but several different areas of concern that each had its own unique request or need for some clarification. Initial approvals, approvals after first graduation class, reapprovals, unannounced visits, conditional approval, Nclex pass rates, satellite program approval. And here's an example of one of the suggested guidelines for reapproval. And I'm just going to read it. It's CAR 60-1-104. And then I'll explain a little bit why some of the struggle to make these algorithms so specific as we would like to have them. This is what the regulation says. The board may place a nursing education program on conditional approval, which is a limited time status that the board imposes on a program if the board finds evidence that an approved nursing education program has failed to comply with educational requirements as set forth in the Nurse Practice Act. When placed on conditional approval status, the program may be directed by the board to cease admissions. KAR 60-1-104 little g. So I want you to just note when I read that we have words like may, limited time status, and may be directed by the board to cease admissions. So in our attempt to make this as clear as we could make it and very structured in black and white, some of those regulations does not give us the option to put in certain stipulations and make them very specific like we would have like them to be, or like type A people like me would like to be able to read in that documentation. So I would know exactly what that would be. The regulations stand, and so we have to work this algorithm around or with, in conjunction with the regulation specific verbiage that's there. So in an effort to ensure that every school is treated fairly, ongoing work will continue with the specifics and verbiage with the guides of the regulation from the Nurse Practice Act. We want to make sure that every school is treated as fairly as humanly possible, and with the reinforcement of the education regulations, we must make sure that we honor the statutes and the regulations without adding or taking away. So we are working on that. We do have a draft. I did not put it in this packet because we'd like to work on it a little bit more. And we have a timeline that we've kind of put together that we'd like to do and bring a draft back to you in the June meeting. And with right now, the plan would be to pilot it in the fall of 2021 with those visits to see how it kind of worked just on the side of our other documentation we're using. And in December, bring it back to the meeting for a final discussion or approval of this additional tool that we would use for this. This is not a new issue with schools. It's something ongoing if you've worked any with the education process. Because of the flexibility that are in some of the regulations with the words like may and limited time status or may be directed, it leaves some options for the board and this committee to help make motions to the board for some of those decisions. And I do not, and the team did not take those decisions lightly. So we want to make sure we do this right. But I think the idea of trying to look at a pilot might be some of our answers. So we will bring back an algorithm for these specific areas that you'll be able to look at and see. And then we can have some discussion about that possibly in the June meeting. Any questions from the committee? I appreciate all the work on that and some help to get that done. It takes a lot of very experienced eyes to look at that and help make the best decisions we can moving forward with our charter in mind. So I'll move to the next piece. And as I read in the script before, we've allowed 5 minutes for each school to be able to explain some of their work here. So what we've done this time is ask the person who's made the, as soon as Janelle talks about the report, then if you have some comments, if you'd like to make that, we'll be glad to take those with the 5-minute limit. So I'll let Janelle go ahead and start with Kansas Wesleyan.
Yes, thank you. Yes, this is Janelle Martin. The Kansas Wesleyan site visit, reapproval site visit was done on September 24th and 25th. It was Rebecca Sander and myself that did the visit. What we found in terms of strengths, we commend KW for the hard work they've done since the April 2017 site visit. All recommendations have not only been met, but have been met well. The Nclex first time pass rate has now had 2 years above the 75%. And so far the 2020 had been at 100%. And then when we got the report, since we've had it since then, it remained at 100%. So they've had 3 years of pass rates above regulation. Integration of the nursing program with the college is very interdisciplinary, and also integration within the nursing program has created a solid curriculum and students consider it a strength. They have a success coordinator position for nursing, which is very unique and very effective for them. Jerry was mentioned, who's their success coordinator, as the contact by many key positions at the school, as well as most of the students mentioned her as well. The commitment by the community of interest, the advisory board, they've been very involved and very supportive of this program as they've moved through some of the changes they've had and continue to be very, very supportive. They've seen an improvement in student professionalism and preparedness and clinical, and that was from the clinical sites. This also speaks to the faculty expectations and role modeling of the professionalism that they're seeing there as well, which all that came from the clinical sites. Students are very positive. They would recommend the program to others, feel very personally and academically supported. There is really good communication with the clinical sites, very strong leadership for the nursing program with their director, Janine Houchin. It was mentioned by many faculty, students, clinical leaders, staff, college peers as a dedicated knowledge and persistent leader for their program. The master evaluation plan, curriculum plan, templates, testing policy, evaluation process is very nicely done, organized well, documented well. Kudos to the college for supporting this process and maintaining the faculty even during the year that they did not have students. The communication is very open, continuous, interdisciplinary, interdepartmental. Faculty are very committed to the success of the nursing program and have really good teamwork. The faculty utilize active teaching strategies. This was observed during the site visit and also mentioned by students. They were very complimentary of the faculty and report they're very approachable and feel very supported by them as well. Nursing administrative assistant in the department is very helpful, detailed in arranging all the documentation and keeping the department and the students all well coordinated and moving in the direction that they need to go. Opportunities for improvement. The progression policy is currently in the academic catalog, but not in the nursing student handbook. We recommended that anything that the nursing student needs to know should be in the nursing handbook. If they cite a statement they've reviewed and understood when it is in the student handbook, then they want to be sure all the pertinent policies, including the KSBN regulation, are in the student nursing handbook. And also, we talked about in their advisory to consider inviting more clinical sites that reside outside of Salina to be part of the advisory for a little more diversity in that particular group. Our recommendation is that the program be removed from conditional approval status, return to full approval with a return visit with the national accreditation in spring of 2023. Just a note, they received their initial CCNE accreditation in 2018. So CCNE does a 5-year for an initial. So they will be back in 2023. And that is our report. And I believe we have Janine and Matt Thompson, who's the president. I'm not sure if they have anything they'd like to follow up with.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Aside from what Janelle just reported from our site visit, I think the only thing I'd like to say is that we took very seriously the many conditions that were required of the program, and we've continued to meet all of those conditions. I think the word persistent is a nice way of saying that I'm a giant nag. I just constantly remind our faculty of what it is we're required to do, and I won't accept anything less. And that is my charge. I take it seriously. I would only offer that, we're very proud of the work that we've done, and we're very proud of our accreditation status, and we're very proud of the brand new facility that we are in, which Janelle and Rebecca got to see it in its, I think, drywall phase, maybe. It was pretty rough. But we're all sitting in wonderful new spaces, and we have a fantastic new facility that our students are enjoying tremendously, and very, very grateful for it. And I'll just address the opportunities for improvement we're working on in process. So those are not a problem at all. Those will be taken care of very quickly. Aside from that, we're just looking at this removal from conditional approval as the final hurdle that our program needs in order to restore us and to move forward in a positive way. And I would entertain any questions.
Do we have any questions from the committee? If not, then I think Chelsea has a motion for us.
I do. Let me pull it up here. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to accept the site visit report for Kansas Wesleyan University, changing their approval status from conditional approval to full approval of the BSN program until spring 2023.
I'll make that motion happily.
Carol Bragdon made that motion, and Karen second. Was that right? Is that all right, Karen? Is that what you said?
Yes, and congratulations, Janine. What a great job you've done.
Thank you so much. And we appreciate all of your thoughts and prayers and your input greatly.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Then all in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. That motion carries. Thank you. The
Thank you.
next person we have on the agenda is Seward County Community College.
Yes, this is Janelle Martin again, Education Compliance. Seward County Community College had a focused site visit for first-time pass rates. That was at behest of the board after the June meeting. We did that as a virtual visit. I forgot to mention, we did do Kansas Wesleyan as an on-site visit before COVID kind of kicked back in. So this was a virtual visit. Site visitors were Rebecca Sander and Janelle Martin. We found many strengths for the program. They've had some struggles. They've had a turnover in their faculty and administration. They had almost a complete turnover in the last 5 years. And so they've had some challenges, but strengths, they have a new Colvin Family Center for Allied Health, which has all new classrooms and faculty offices, computer labs, a new simulation lab with high fidelity simulators. They have observation rooms, video capability, debriefing spaces, and they can run simultaneous simulations. It's a wonderful facility for them and has improved, I think, things for that program as well. Professional development is being focused as an area for needed improvement. They have a lot of new faculty, but they've really focused on, especially on simulation, test item writing, and clinical judgment tools for implementation in the curriculum. The faculty are very dedicated, engaged, continually looking for opportunities to improve their teaching skills and the curriculum focus. Students find them a good resource and very approachable. Healthcare community support is very strong, and the clinical sites are primarily very close to where they are, and primarily only have the Seward County students. So they're very fortunate in they're not sharing a lot of their clinical sites. Their administrative team, they do have a dean for allied health. So the DON there, the director for their nursing program, has responsibility only for the nursing. That was a change with the new director and a positive change for them. They do have 2 new team members on that administrative team, but both of them are very knowledgeable about the nursing program and what's needed, and are very supportive of the changes that are needed and continue to be supportive of that. There's good communication between the dean for allied health and the nursing director, and they continue to work on that program. There's solid leadership for the nursing program and the faculty. They feel very supported, not only by their director, but the school in terms of their faculty development. And that's been a positive for them. They started using ExamSoft in 2019. They found that to be very good for their test security and in developing their testing analysis process. They are moving away from Kaplan and implementing ATI resources. They just started that last fall. They felt like those were dated resources, and so they have made what they feel like is a positive move toward being more on target with the goals for their program and the resources with ATI. Perkins funding, they've been very fortunate. They've used primarily for faculty development and simulation development. With the changes with the COVID, they've had to figure out some virtual sim resources, which they were able to do. And with the Kansas Nurse Initiative grant they got for 2021, it helped include some more support of their simulation they will be hiring a simulation facilitator to run that program for them. That has been a huge positive for them. Some opportunities for improvement. Syllabi, just want to make sure those are complete and consistent, and that they detail the clinical hours, the grading policy, make sure that's clear to students, and to make all those consistent. The systematic plan of evaluation, it's very thorough for the end of program outcomes, but needs to include some of the other things that they're looking at in terms of evaluation. And they are working on that already. They also want to make sure that the assessments, whether those are met or not met, are congruent with the statement that's in the plan. Testing policy, they're working on, they need to continue to work on test blueprints and add documentation for how they're doing the analysis, and to make sure those documents are retrievable for review, and to do those for all courses. Simulations until full capacity might consider giving voice to the mannequin. it's needing to level up the type of simulation they're doing with their ADN students. Clinical experience for level 2 students. And again, looking for opportunities to level up. They're having experiences, but some challenge with making sure that the objectives are leveling them up to an ADN level for those that require more clinical judgment at the ADN level. The recommendations were to update the systematic evaluation plan for the areas needed and to submit to the education compliance officer by September of 21. To review and revise the pass rate improvement plan that's in place to bring the Nclex first time pass rates consistently above the standard and submit progress reports every 6 months. First report will be due in September. Plan to do a follow-up site visit in 1 year. We did this visit in the fall with accreditation, which is coming fall of 2021. And the fourth was to place the program on conditional approval if the 2020 pass rate were not above the 75%. And we did that. There had been 3 years of just under low pass rates, but since we didn't have a final 2020 rate at that time, we made it conditional upon the 2020 final report from NCSBN. So that concludes my report. I believe that Susan England is planning to be present if she has any other comments.
Susan, is there anything else you'd like to add to that report?
No, let me put this on video.
There we go.
Wasn't sure if you could see us. I've got the faculty here with me in the classroom. We appreciate the opportunities and the recommendations from the site visitors, and we look forward to working together as a team to resolve some of our concerns.
Okay, thank you for that, Susan. Any questions from the committee? Then I think we have a motion, Chelsea.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to accept the focus site visit report for Seward County Community College with plans to place the program on conditional approval if final 2020 Nclex pass rates are not above regulatory standard of 75%, with a follow-up site visit to occur in 1 year.
I'll make that motion.
I will second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
Yep.
Then continuing with the agenda, Colby Community College ADN follow-up focus site visit.
Yes. So we did a visit with the Colby ADN program on October 27th and 28th. Site visitors were myself and Patsy Zeller. This was a follow-up. We had done a site visit for first-time pass rates in 2019 at the behest of the board for 3 years of low pass rates. And this was one of the recommendations that we follow up in a year. We were supposed to be out there in the spring, but with COVID, all those site visits got rescheduled. So we went in October. So the focus was on the improvement plan that had been in place. And our focus was on seeing that the recommendations from that site visit for the low pass rates were addressed. So in terms of strengths, we found that there a major amount of teamwork that was apparent in the Colby Community College and how they worked through the recommendations and how they would be addressed, and that there had been improvement from the focus visit in 2019. There is obviously involvement at all levels of Colby Community College with the nursing program and with the faculty. Faculty commitment to curriculum improvement, strengthening policies, and planning for student success. There was a lot of work on policies and how their ATI was working within their curriculum, and to really work on making outcomes, make it apparent to student what outcomes are and when those outcomes are being met. Continued support and championing of the program by administration. And they do have an improved relationship with the local hospital with some increased in communication, and they have been using it more for clinicals, which was one of the recommendations, was to strengthen that. Opportunities for improvement, continue to strengthen those clinical opportunities for direct clinical hours, and to continue working on the relationship with their local hospital, CMCI. The two main areas for that, the communication between the staff liaison and Colby has improved. That could include more inclusion with the rest of the faculty. It's a small faculty, and so I think it's important for all of them to be on the same page. We did found that sometimes there still is a disconnect between the hospital and the faculty. Meeting clinical objectives for student learning outcomes, making sure that they drive the clinical and not to let the clinical be in charge of how their outcomes, and not leaving that to chance, but to really try to direct those learning experiences from the beginning. Simulation, an opportunity for improvement is to develop a true simulation experience, not just using them for skills checkoffs, with scenarios that would create opportunity for the students to engage in critical thinking and clinical judgment. And along with that, to develop a debriefing process to increase the learning opportunities engagement with the students. And also along with that, some faculty development regarding that simulation teaching and learning. Recommendations, what we found was recommendations from the last focus have either been met or in process, except for the first time pass rate. There was a 2019 pass rate of 83%, which was above the standard. We will continue to assess and ask them to continue to assess and revise the improvement plan as needed to see those pass rates above the regulation standard for 3 consecutive years. Progress reports on the improvement plan every 6 months until those expectations for pass rates are met. And the next progress report would be due in September of this year. We want to schedule the next site visit on schedule with national accreditation for reapproval and reevaluation of the program status at that time. So those were the recommendations from the October meeting. And I believe we have Ricky Waite, the administrator, and Seth Carter, president at Colby. If there are any remarks.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's unusual how you guys do this, to have the ability to bring people in, bring them out. That's impressive. No, just in regards to the report, our first time pass rate for 2020 has been finalized, and it is higher than what's reported in the packet. I believe it's just a shade under 78%. I would default to Director Waite to go through and clarify that. And then in regards to our relationship with Citizens Health, since our visit, I have met with the CEO of the hospital multiple times to go through and really try to understand some of those communication barriers and some of those opportunities for improvement. So we have made that connection. I do want to let the board know we have made numerous communication efforts with Citizens Health, though. This is not a new initiative. This is just continuing and already a process that was already underway. So no, I just thank you for your time and your efforts on it. We look forward to continuing to improve the program.
All right, so number one, I want to apologize because I have the crud. So I want to thank the visitors for our visit in October. It was really informational. We learned a lot of stuff. We really appreciate your time and your consideration. Our pass rate for 2020 was 77.78%. We do have a new policy that we're putting into place for faculty mentoring. We do have one that the college put in place 2 years ago, but we did not have one that was nursing specific. So we are putting one of those into place, and it is developed by my faculty. And especially I have a new one in my LPN program who was on that committee too. So really good ideas there. So I'll include that in our packet for June. We did initiate clinical affiliate meetings weekly. We did that here at the beginning of this month. We've had 3 meetings so far. We are doing them. And all of our clinical sites and clinical adjuncts are included in those clinical affiliate meetings. They're Wednesdays at noon. So it kind of helped open that bridge for communication. And so they knew exactly who they needed to communicate with for concerns or reports or anything like that. We also initiated a Google Drive that has all our clinical objectives, calendars, and outlines also in that, so they all have access to it all the time so that everybody's kind of on the same page. And I bring that up every week so they remember that it's there. So we do have a nurse tutor that has really helped with our students this year. They have really started utilizing it this spring semester. It was kind of lagged here in the fall, but they really have started utilizing it in the spring semester. Let's see. So far, right at the moment, our ATI pulse score, it showed not met on the report, is 92%. So we're really excited about that. And I'll go through all my notes. And for our simulation stuff, we did do a revision on our nursing initiative grant. So we do have CAE coming back in to do a 2-day training with my faculty for this spring summer semester so that we can get a fresh start for next year. We also are going to be purchasing the CERC courses from NLN for all of the faculty so that they're all on the same page. And it goes through all of the steps of how to do a really good simulation. So I'm really excited about that also. We do have an experienced nurse educator coming in here in April, and she is going to assist the faculty and myself with our simulation mannequin for our final sim for this year, so that we kind of help set it up and make sure that we have a good debriefing tool and the whole 9 yards so that we kind of finish on a really strong note with the students with our simulation. And that it concludes it for about now. So.
Any questions from the committee? Chelsea, do you have a motion?
I do. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to accept the focus site visit report for Colby Community College with plans to schedule a reapproval site visit at the time of national accreditation.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. I just want to add one thing. Thank you, Seth and Ricky, for being on today. If you want to look at a work ethic, you need to go to Colby and see what hard work has gone on there. That school has put a lot of effort in helping make this program stellar. And so if you need to send somebody to learn how to work hard, those people know how to do it. So I appreciate you on today. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next thing on the agenda is Johnson County Community College.
Okay. Johnson County Community College, this is for the PN program. We did a visit on January 26th and 27th of this year. This was also a virtual visit. Site visitors were Becca Sander and Janelle Martin. Strengths for the program. There are plentiful resources for the PN program. The program director is organized, forward-thinking, a good communicator, works well with faculty and administration. We heard that from several levels. Student support services are strong and numerous. They mentioned that as well. They feel very supported. The number of clinical sites and relationships with the clinical sites, they're very on top of maintaining relationships, even with ones they're not currently using, which is good in case you have to do a redo in the middle of the semester. Dedicated simulation lab with recording and debriefing capabilities, great skills lab facilities, well-resourced for the faculty development. They do have dedicated full-time faculty with great teamwork and experience, and they share that with each other and with their new clinical adjuncts very well. The advisory committee, very involved and diverse. The program has high regard from the community. We heard that from their community folks from that meeting. The advisory, very involved. Program has, I apologize. Students speak very highly of the program and the faculty. They really like having the option for the evening weekend program. So they have both a daytime and an evening weekend program with faculty that covers both of those. And we had spoke with students from both programs and felt like they got good attention from both programs. Faculty is compassionate, supportive, and works with them very, very well. Program director does informal surveying, gets feedback continually from the clinical sites to improve the program. That's constant and ongoing. That was evident from talking with the clinical sites. The really interesting new thing that they're doing, I can't remember quite how new, but the PN program is working with their ESL staff to create more opportunities for the ESL students to be successful in the nursing program in order to meet community needs for healthcare workers with diverse backgrounds. Thought this is a very innovative approach in terms of what some of the barriers were for those folks and how to get them to a level where they could be more successful with the nursing program. And I think that they have found that to be a really positive improvement and might see more applicants from that perspective, but also then providing for the community need to have some more diversity going out to some of their community facilities. Opportunities, the testing policy for faculty needs to include testing planning, item writing, and test analysis. The faculty handbook needs updating. There are some old policies and need to have the pertinent topics like the exam test policy, which was not present at that time. And maybe to formalize more the feedback loops that relate to the program outcomes, a clear process for how and when they are measured and analyzed and reported, and how reported measures are used in program improvement. Nursing faculty orientation, document it, put a checklist in, do something, keep in the faculty files to show those completion dates. The school has a pretty thorough orientation process, but to document your nursing program orientation and to make sure that's all included as well. Recommendations, document the process for nursing faculty orientation for full-time and adjunct. Develop and keep a checklist with those dates of completion and keep those completed documents in faculty files. Submit that process to the Education Compliance Officer by June 30 of 21. Develop a testing process policy that outlines the process for faculty follow for testing, item writing, and test analysis. Submit to the Education Compliance Officer by September 30 of 21. And we recommend reapproval of the program for 5 years with the next scheduled visit in spring of 2026. And our program director is actually with us on the board, so I don't know if she has any other comments.
No, we just want to thank you and Rebecca for coming to see us virtually. We've made a lot of changes in our program in the last 4 years. It's pretty much a brand new program, and the team and I have worked very, very hard to try to get it where it is now. As far as the opportunities, we have 4 of the 6 faculty are on a committee. We're finalizing a new nursing handbook. There's 3 of the 6 are on a committee for the testing policy. We have our orientation list. I sent Janelle a rough draft to see just an outside opinion of, is there anything we're missing? So we implemented some of her thoughts on that, and we should have that finalized this week. So we are on our way to getting all the recommendations met and the opportunity for the handbook. And on a side note as well, in regards to the ESL, that's something that we are incredibly proud of. That took a lot of work and practice and lots of different departments coming together. But we went from a 5 to 7% diversity in our program to a 35% diversity. So it has made an astounding difference. It's made a huge difference in the way we teach as well. So we are incredibly proud of that. That's something that we really worked hard on, and it's taught us where our limitations were so that we could, evolve as faculty and as a team as well. So it's been great.
And just as a side note, your diversity in your faculty has increased as well. And I think that's another positive that why you've seen the increase, but that's been really great.
Yeah, I think it was actually because we've always sought extra diversity in our faculty and really nobody ever applied. But I think when they saw the diversity in our student population, we started seeing more diversity in our faculty applications. Yeah. So it's that counter effect. So it's been great. Yeah, it's been great.
Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none. Chelsea, do you have a motion for us?
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to accept the site visit report for Johnson County Community College, reapproving the PN program for a time period of 5 years.
I so move.
I'll second.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed say no. Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thanks for that. Next one, Janelle, is Baker University.
Yes. So Baker University, the BSN program, we did this as a virtual visit in conjunction with CCNE on February 17th. Site visitors for us were Karen Kidder and myself. We had a great visit with them. Lots of activity going on. So strengths that we found, amazing effort put together in their virtual resource room, very organized, very, very well done. It was unique in its approach, and with the CCNE as well, there were lots and lots of resources for us to look at. There's very strong support of the nursing program from the university and the hospital system. It's a very unique and strong partnership with Stormont Vail. Stormont Vail has allowed nursing students to work on the units with COVID patients and work along and learn along with the nursing staff. I think that's been a huge strength and benefit for them to have that relationship, that partnership. The nurses at Stormont Vail are very appreciative of the Baker nursing faculty and mention them going above and beyond for their students. That was said frequently. Students choose Baker because of the rigor and the high pass rates of the program and the knowledge they would know how to be a good nurse on graduation. I thought that was a couple of the comments made by the students, that's what they really thought well of their program. The students feel they have input into decisions and coursework and highly recommend the program. They have very innovative and unique clinical opportunities. They use a dental clinic. There's a one in Topeka that does work with population health, so they get that experience. They've used escape rooms as ways of learning. They do an international trip. It didn't do that this year, but they have that as an option. And it's just been, the students mention all those things as positives for the program as well. They have students presenting research at Stormont Vail does a research day. Very good opportunity for the nursing students to use some of the knowledge they're getting, not only of clinical, but their research process as well. The association with the School of Nursing in Stormont Vail allows for very competitive faculty salaries and supportive nursing faculty. There's a benefit to the magnet designation for them. They have very varied and rich clinical experiences and opportunities for employments for their graduates as well with that relationship. The alumni commented on their thanks to the faculty in Stormont Vail for ensuring that they could have clinical experiences during the pandemic. We did have a couple of the graduates from the 2020 class. They are aware that that's not necessarily true for other programs and their graduates. They were very thankful for that. The Community of Interest Advisory Group are very engaged and very complimentary of the program and its impact on the community and the nursing students who graduate from the program. They have a lot of retention here in the community with the program here. They have a faculty-led student success program. They started that in 2015, has very well-defined parameters, collaborative support, and follow-up for the student. It's very well followed through. You can see the process, and it's shared with all the faculty. So the students have a well wrapped around experience to create success for them. Opportunities. One thing in the student handbook to really clarify that student versus employee role in the scope of practice. It's there, but it bears a little mentioning because there are a lot of students who also work in some of those facilities. So just to make sure that distinction is there. Recommendation, we recommend reapproval for the time of national accreditation, which for CCNE is 10 years. And I believe we have Mary Hobus with us, who's the fairly new director for Baker. I think she was going to be with us. Yeah, there.
Mary, do you have anything you need to or want to add to Janelle's report?
There.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm not sure why you can't see me, but I would just like to thank Karen and Janelle for the visit and the learning process that we went through. We are working on explaining the role in more depth as you have recommended. We're also looking at our testing and getting ready for the new Gen X tests that's coming up for Nclex. And I look forward to a partnership with Kansas State Board of Nursing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Any other questions for the committee? Hearing none. Chelsea, I think we have another motion.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to accept the site visit report for Baker University, reapproving the BSN program for a time period of national accreditation.
This is Carol Bragdon. I will so move.
I will second. This is Amy Height.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you very much for that. We're ready for new business. I'm going to keep just plugging along the agenda here. So new business, major curriculum change request, Flint Hills Technical College. I think what we talked about doing is putting 5 minutes that the person who is in charge of the major curriculum change request could give us just a short synopsis, overview of what that's about, and then we can follow up with questions.
Right. And so Colton, Tricia Parks is our first presenter from Flint Hills Technical College PN program. There she is.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I was having some issues on the meeting yesterday, so I was hoping it would work today. So Flint Hills Technical College request is to implement the IV therapy portion into the PN core curriculum. We had been waiting for that to be approved as part of the core curriculum before asking for this request. And then of course, faculty wanted to actually get into and teach the core curriculum itself before implementing this piece. They're requesting to implement, of course, the content and the skills into Nursing Care of Adults 1. And then the students in their clinical will do skills checkoffs with an exam as well. And then once they're through that course and they've met those requirements, it will be implemented throughout the curriculum after that course. We do have a current clinical site that has already agreed to allow us to do those skills if we are approved with this curriculum change.
Any questions from the committee?
No, this is Dee Bonnebless, and I just have a very quick question. I noticed on your syllabi, it gives a range of 1 to 3 clinical credits. I just wanted to understand that a bit more, please.
With the core curriculum, it is up to each PN school to decide what they would like. So that's why there is a range on that. Our particular course is 3 credit hours.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Chelsea, I think you have a motion.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the major curriculum change for Flint Hills Technical College to include IV therapy into the LPN curriculum beginning fall 2021.
This is Dee Bonnebless, and I will move.
I can second.
A motion is second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia.
The next one on our list here is Mid-America Nazarene University.
Yes, and I believe this is for their BSN program, and Sarah Miller is the director for that, but I also believe that Dr. Christy Danahy may be doing the presentation, Colton, so I believe both of them are planning to be present.
Hi, thank you for having me. So yes, I'm Christy Danahy and the Department Chair for Pre-Licensure Nursing Education. So we have 2 proposals. Would you like me to go ahead and speak on both proposals at the same time?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So our first proposal is actually for our Fundamentals of Nursing course. As you can probably tell by the name, it's kind of our skills course. So it includes a lab portion along with a theory portion. And MNU, our curriculum committee, has done a really good job this year of looking at our curriculum and making sure that our traditional BSN program and our accelerated BSN program, that those courses have good alignment with each other. So as part of that, one of the things that we wanted to align was our fundamentals course is currently a 4 credit hour course. But when you look at our courses that align for accelerated, they're called Concepts of Nursing, and we have Concepts of Nursing 1 and 2, and it's a total of 5 credit hours. 1 is a 3 credit hour and 1 is 2 credit hour. So we just wanted to get those better aligned, and also we just needed more time in that Fundamentals of Nursing course for students to have more hands-on time in the lab. They do a small clinical rotation there as well, and we'd like to add some simulation time in. So, and add a little bit to the classroom. So we would propose that we add 1 credit hour to this course. It will not change the overall credits to the program because the next proposal is for our is for another course again in the traditional program. that is designed around quality, safety, and ethics. And again, in alignment with the accelerated program, it's a 2 credit hour course. And in the traditional, it's been a 3 credit hour course. And really our instructors, our faculty have a really hard time filling that 3 credit hour course. So to align better with our accelerated program and to even out those hours, we're proposing that we take 1 credit hour away from that course. In addition, there are some course description changes, minor course description changes, and minor course objective changes to just better align. And I think that's the bulk of it. But again, overall, same hours, just kind of moving a couple things around. Both of these courses, one is in their first semester of their junior year, and the other course is in second semester of their junior year.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? I guess we're ready for the motion.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the major curriculum change for Mid-American Nazarene University, adding an additional credit hour to the TSBN fundamentals course and deducting 1 credit hour from another course so that the overall program hours remain the same.
I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is Kansas City, Kansas Community College.
Yes, they have this is Janelle. They have a request for their PN program, and I believe Susan Anderson is planning to present that change.
Good morning. It appears I'm having some camera issues. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
All right, if you're okay, I'll go ahead and not take up time adjusting the camera. This is Susan Anderson, Director of Nursing from Kansas City, Kansas Community College, and I would like to present a major request for our practical nursing program. There's actually 2 requests today. Our first request is that we have implemented the core curriculum for a year now. And upon doing so, we would like to eliminate 1 course that we have. It is not part of the core. It was an additional 3 credit theory of assessment course in our first semester. It appears to be overburdening the students, asking them to complete 18 credits in their first semester. So we would like to take this course and spread it out a bit, so it's not such a huge course at the beginning of the program. So what we recommend, instead of doing 3 credits in the first semester, is doing 1 credit as a prerequisite, and that would be medical terminology to help our English language learners become, well, it will help all students, but in particular, English language learners become familiar with medical terminology so they have a good foundation for entering the program. Then during first semester, we would have a 1 credit application of health assessment. This would have a half credit of didactic and a half credit of lab, and students would apply their assessment knowledge. We'll have some case scenarios, time for practicing skills. Second semester, we would have a 1 credit application of clinical judgment course. And this course would be using discussion and case studies to help students develop clinical judgment, apply the clinical judgment model, apply core curricular material. And we feel like this will help us begin to prepare students for that next gen Nclex. So our second request is just a resequencing of our program. After doing this curriculum for a year, faculty have taken a look at it and they feel like they would like to try a slightly different sequence. They feel like the gap, we have 8 weeks between fundamentals and nursing care of adults 1, and they feel like this gap is negatively impacting the students. They would like to move nursing care of adults 1 right after fundamentals, followed by nursing care of adults 2, and then put this specialty courses, maternal child, mental health, leadership, more towards the end of the program. This will also give our students more opportunity to practice their IV certification skills after completion of nursing care of adults 1. When they're in that second semester, they'll have that full semester for opportunities related to IV skills. And those are our 2 requests. So replacing the 3-credit class and resequencing courses for our PN program.
Any questions from the committee for Susan? Hearing none, I guess we're ready for a motion.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the major curriculum change for Kansas City Community College to eliminate NUPN 0134, a 3-credit hour course, adding medical terminology, application of assessment, and clinical judgment, all 1 credit hour each.
This is Dee Bonneblest, and I move to accept the major curriculum request.
This is Amy Hyde. I second this.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you very much, everyone.
So the next one on the list was the one I asked to remove of the agenda, which is University of Kansas. So we'll go straight to Donnelly College.
Yes, Donnelly College PN program has a request, and I believe that Patty Pomiato is going to be making that presentation.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Patty. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So Donnelly College is asking for the LPN program to add a daytime cohort. We want to run it the same way that we've been running our night and evening and weekend program. We have found that in the last 4 semesters, we have had over 200 qualified applicants, and the majority of these are interested in daytime program. Right now, we currently admit an evening program in January and August. My ask is only that we accept 1 daytime cohort of 25 for the August terms only at this point. I feel like with the pandemic, with everything that's going on, I don't want to overstep it. We have just successfully, with the 2020 rates, completed 3 years of above 75%. And at this point, I'm 7 for 7 for the people that graduated in December. So I just want to make sure we keep our hands around it, and that we're proceeding at a slower pace than trying to get 2 cohorts in the daytime at this point. I'd like to try it for a couple of years before we even advance that far.
Any questions from the committee?
Patty, this is Christina Rudisell. Am I understanding this is, so you would admit August only and you would not have the evening cohort?
No, it would be in addition to our evening cohorts. We would be adding 1 daytime cohort a year to that.
So does that increase your numbers?
By 25.
Okay. All right. Sorry. I need caffeine for my caffeine today.
Sorry.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Chelsea, do you have a motion?
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the major curriculum change for Donnelly College, adding a daytime cohort of 25 starting August 2021.
I'll make that motion.
I'll
This is
second
Carol
that.
Bragdon, I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Thank
Patty.
you. We have 3 more major curriculum change requests. If it's okay with everyone, let's get through that and then we'll do a break, if that will work. The next one is Washburn University.
Yes, Washburn University graduate program has a request, and I believe Bobby Mansfield and Jane Carpenter will be making that presentation.
There we go. Hello.
Hey, Jane.
Hi. Washburn University graduate program has been looking at curriculum and felt like after 8 years of our program running, it was time to make some adjustments. And one of the things that they wanted to do was add time in their doctoral leadership class. They felt that 1 credit hour was just not enough. But they also, as part of that, looked at their global health course and wanted to make some changes there based on we've had a number of faculty teaching that course. So we had a task force that sat down together and looked at those 2 courses. So our proposal for you is to increase our NU 803 course, which will now be NU 809, from 1 credit hour to 2 credit hours. And then we've listed our, we went ahead and updated our course description, course outcomes, and content outline as part of that. And then our leadership in global health, which is NU 906, will go from 3 credit hours to 2 credit hours in the new course NU 903, which is perspectives for the advancement of global health. And again, the content has been refreshed, new course outcomes and new course descriptions. They also looked at the new essentials document kind of as they were working on this revision. So we'll increase the 809 course from 1 to 2, and we will decrease the new 903 course from 3 to 2. Dr. Mansfield has looked at all of student progressions, and it will not affect any of the current students. We've made the adjustments to get them in the right place with course hours. I'm open for any questions.
Any questions for the committee? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Is there a
This is
committee member
Amy
who would
Hyde.
like? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chelsea. I was
That's
going
okay.
to, I stepped in too quick.
I'll just read it real quick. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the major curriculum change for Washburn University graduate program, changing NU 803 from 1 credit hour to 2 credit hours and changing NU 906 from 3 credit hours to 2 credit hours.
This is Amy Hyde. I will make a motion for this recommendation.
And I will second it.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The next one we have is Newman University graduate program.
Yes, this request is, and this is Janelle Martin. The Newman University Nurse Anesthesia Program. They have a new director, Megan Cook, who I believe is going to be making the presentation. for that program. And she, I believe, will be accompanied by Teresa Vetter. And I think they might be on different ones, Colton.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay. My name is Megan Cook. I'm the director of the nurse anesthesia program at Newman. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here with you today. Our proposal is to move to terminate the master's entry-level program into nurse anesthesia as a directive from all advanced practice nursing, as well as the Council on Accreditation for Nurse Anesthesia Educational Programs. We are required to make that move by January 1st of 2022. And so we have submitted submitted our application and have gained conditional approval from the Council on Accreditation of Nurse Anesthesia Education Programs. Newman's is a little bit more complicated than perhaps some other programs because this is Newman's first doctoral program. So we are in the process of obtaining not only approval from the Council on Accreditation, which we have received conditional approval, but also from the Kansas State Board of Nursing and the Higher Learning Commission. And we have met with the Higher Learning Commission virtually in February, and the committee has recommended that to move forward to the May meeting for HLC. So we are just waiting on that final approval from HLC. And so with development of this curriculum and change from a master's level to a doctoral level, any classes that were left as, like a chemistry and physics class, for example, it remains in the program as it was in the master's level. But anything, and I've included a table in the information that I submitted of elevation of anything that was still a remaining master's course, elevating that to the doctoral level. So in examining the university goals, the programmatic goals of, and the doctoral standards from both the Council on Accreditation as well as the doctoral pillars. In developing the curriculum, that was all mapped out, and I did not send the 191-page full curriculum map. I did not think you would want that entire thing, but it has been mapped with all of the COA doctoral standards as well as the doctoral pillars, and in line with university and programmatic goals as well. It will require the addition of one full-time faculty member, and the plan is to hire that new person with the start of the doctoral program. And the goal for that first class is May of 2022.
Thanks for that, Megan. Any other questions that the committee has? Hearing none, I guess, Chelsea, we're ready for a motion.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the major curriculum change for Newman University graduate program to transition from entry-level master's program to entry-level doctoral program.
This is Carol Bragdon. I shall move that.
This is Karen Kidder, and I can second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last major curriculum change request we have is Seward County Community College.
Yes, Seward County is a bi-level program, and they are making a request that will involve both levels. And I believe Susan England is making that presentation.
Hello, I'm Susan England, and I'm here with the nursing faculty for Seward County Community College. And we have identified areas within the curriculum that needed revision. The bi-level program was changed to bi-level back in the early 2005. And the curriculum at that time really did not change very much. Our student demographics has changed and the faculty have identified the needs of the students. We have seen the Nclex pass rate drop over the past several years, and the faculty have wanted to make this revision for the needs of the students. The students we've had separate coursework, separate classes, and the students seem to be learning in silos. And, you know, the faculty have been teaching in silos. We've had a complete faculty turnover within the last 5 years. And I really want to commend the nursing faculty. They've put a lot of work into this curriculum revision. And if there's any questions from the Education Committee, we would be happy to address anything.
Any questions for the committee?
Well, this is Dee Bonenblust, and wow, first of all, I want to say I absolutely can see a lot of work that you and your faculty have undergone. The question I have, really for clarification, is on the new curriculum. Under the pharmacology, I can see you have nursing 1, 2, and 3, but because of the way it printed out, I can't tell your credits for your pharmacology number 2.
It's a 2-credit hour course.
Okay.
Or excuse me, is it 1 or 2? It's 1 credit hour.
It's 1. Okay. Okay. And I couldn't figure out because there's a span between 66 and 70, but I understand that's because of the A&P and micro courses. So
the Pharm 1 with Nursing Care 1 is the 2 credit hour. Yeah.
Yes, that's what's printed. Great. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I just would like to say one thing is I just really appreciate the work of the nursing faculty for Seward. They have worked for a period of over 2 years working on this curriculum, and I really hand it to them. It's their curriculum.
Any other questions? Okay, Chelsea, we're ready for another motion.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the major curriculum change for Seward County Community College to revise level 1 and level 2 nursing courses, providing a structured build upon education across the lifespan in a cohesive active learning environment.
This is Dee Bonenblust, and I move to accept the major curriculum change.
This is Christina. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Everyone in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
I think we're ready for a break if everybody's okay with that. Let's reconvene at 10:20. Thank you.
Chelsea, how old is your baby?
He's 7 weeks today.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
What's his name?
Maverick.
Maverick.
Yeah.
Well, he seems like a good little guy.
It's his very first board meeting.
Put it in his baby book, huh?
Yeah.
Colton, this is Patsy. It's 10:21. Are we ready to go again?
Come on. Yep. Yeah, you should be good to go.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, I guess we'll continue with the agenda that we have here. And the next thing on the list is 2020 Nclex first-time pass rates.
Yes, this is Janelle Martin, Education Compliance Officer. On the 2020 Nclex pass rate report, both the RN and the PN programs reports are included in your packet. Just a quick reminder about our regulations in the pass rates. Our regulations state that programs with two consecutive years below pass rate standard will receive a letter of concern from the board, and the letter will ask for program analysis and plan of action regarding pass rates, and the program will have 3 months to comply with that. For those with 3 consecutive years below standard, a site visit for evaluation and recommendation will be scheduled. And nurse administrator will come to the meeting and present the analysis of measures taken. And programs with 1 year below are monitored and nothing further. So with that, on the RN report, we have 36 RN programs, 15 BSN, 21 ADN. The Kansas RN pass rate was 86.18% for all programs. That was slightly below, but not significantly different from the national first-time pass rate of 86.57%. And that's with over 177,000 exams taken. 18 of 36 programs were above the national average. There were 17 last year, just as an idea. 2 programs were at 100%. We had 3 last year. So I think maintaining that very well. 6 programs were between 75 and 80%. And I bring that forward. The board last year had asked about looking at those programs that are between the current standard and the proposed standard, just looking and kind of monitoring that number. So there were 6 this year, there were 2 last year. And then we had 3 programs below the 75% standard, and follow-up for those programs will occur per regulation. Any questions on the RN report? Hearing none. For the PN, we have 22 PN programs. The first time pass rate for Kansas PN programs was 87.89, which was quite a bit above the national average of 83.08. We had 17 of 22 programs above that national average. 19 last year, so pretty much in compliance with that. 3 programs at 100%. Congratulations to them. There were 2 programs between 75 and 80. Last year, there weren't any, so we did see a little bit of increase in that number there. We had 1 program slightly below 75%, and again, per regulation, no action required on that. So with that, that said, that is the report. If there are any questions, I'm glad to try and answer those.
Any questions from the committee? As Carol Moreland, will this go to the board tomorrow and they'll approve them and put them officially out, or how does that work?
I think it's come forth as a motion from here in the past.
I think it has too, but I didn't see that we had one written up. So do we need to make a motion for that?
I can add one in. That's no
Okay.
problem.
I think you're right, Carol. I think we do
We have in the past.
push that up as a motion to the board so that it can be put on the website officially.
Mhm.
So is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to accept the 2020 Nclex pass rates as written. Sorry about the baby.
That's okay. I think that works.
Yeah, I'll move that.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Looks like that motion carries. Thanks for that, Chelsea. Next on the agenda is the addition that I added about the letter from the community college presidents, and it is in the on-site packet for you to read. I just wanted to highlight a couple points here, and a suggestion and a motion that I would like to make today. But let me go through the letter that we received, as it's in the on-site packet, and it had a concern raised collectively from the Kansas City College presidents, and a concern for the great possibility of lower pass rates due to the lack of clinical sites available to the nursing students during 2021 school year COVID. That's some of the bulk that was in the letter. The clarification from the Attorney General's office regarding regulations within the Nurse Practice Act highlighted the fact that these regulations do not allow exceptions to the request for a minimum pass rate for compliance with KSBN requirements. And please note that we appreciate the open communication with the community college presidents regarding the vision for successful nursing programs across the state. I understand COVID, we've all lived it. We're now, I think we're just officially working on a year of all of that. But in researching application of the revised regulations that we have in process right now for the Education Committee, it was noticed and brought to my attention that once Kansas State Board of Nursing approves the proposed regulation changes, it's just a few short steps and the regulations would become law and effective immediately. And I asked Carol Moreland if she would explain that process just a little bit to us, and some other highlights about the letter.
Okay. A couple things on the letter that I want to bring your attention to. I actually received this letter as an attachment to an email on February 18th of 2021. I just say that because the date on the letter is January 13th, 2020. But I truly did not receive this until February 18th. And my response was to the college president that sent it to me, is that I would make sure that this was taken to the board in the March meeting. And then in discussion with Patsy, that's when we decided that it probably needed to start in this committee and then go to the board from this committee. So I apologize that it ended up in an on-site packet. That was just because of what had happened here. But just to kind of review with you very fast, anytime we revise regulations, this is the process that has to take place. They have to go to Division of Budget with a fiscal analysis. They have to go to Department of Administration. They look for the grammar, all of that. It goes to the Attorney General's office. They look, do we have the statutory authority to do what we're asking to do? If there's changes in any of those areas, then it starts back over again. And the revisions that we have been working on for years now have been throughout this process, probably 2, if not 3 times, and back again because of a change here or a change there. So if you choose to make any changes, it's probably a good time because they're going to be starting back over anyway. After it makes it through those three, then we have to put together a public hearing date. And that date has to be at least 60 days out. Because of a couple of things, we have to publish the public hearing date in the Kansas Register. And that's it. During that 60 days, that's when anybody can give us comments that wants to. We do require written comments because those any written comments that we receive go to the board for them to review. And so if someone wants to provide comments, they just have to do it written. Also, what has to take place during that 60-day period is I go over to the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regs over at the legislature, and that has representatives from both chambers of the legislature. And I present these revisions to them, answer any questions that they have, and then they also provide written feedback in support, requesting changes, anything like that. It's my understanding they cannot require you to make changes. However, you know, if they suggest some changes, that goes to the board for the board to review. And then we have the public hearing. And the public hearing is a time, again, that anyone, we usually do it by conference call, that they can call in and they can give their comments. But they, again, have to follow it up in a written format so that all of the comments go to the board for review. And so after that point, then the written comments are all put together and they go in the board packet for the next board meeting, unless the board decides that they want to do a special meeting on this for some reason. And that's always up to the board, what they want to do. The board reviews all the comments and then they have the choice, do they want to make changes in the revisions based on some of the comments, or do they want to approve the revisions? If they make changes on any of the revisions at that point, it starts all over again. If they approve the revisions, don't make any changes, then after the board meeting, I just have to certify the results because we have to do a roll call vote on each of the regulations. And then I send all of that information along with the approved regulations to the Kansas Register. It's published in the Kansas Register, and then it's effective 15 days after the publication date. So it's a rather long process. So anyway, just to kind of let you know that. You know, I think what I kind of took out of this letter that came is they're very, very appreciative of everything that KSBN has done to accommodate the nursing programs throughout the pandemic. You know, we've allowed them to conduct lectures via Zoom and other modalities that we haven't required them to submit a curriculum change unless it's something that's going to be permanent. They are aware that you're considering implementing a change that would establish a standard where at least 50% of clinical hours need to be provided to students in face-to-face settings. And so what they hope then is that the board will exhibit some level of flexibility on the rigidness of the proposed standards and the pass rates. And what they're talking there is in the revisions that we're working on right now is the pass rates go up to 80%. And it's not 2 years and then they have to 2 consecutive years and they have to submit a report. It's after 1 year of less than 80%, they submit a report. And then after 2 consecutive years, that's when a site visit can be done and they can be placed on conditional approval. So they're hoping that the board will exhibit some level of flexibility on these proposed standards and pass rates, just given the challenges that have been expressed over the past year by the nursing programs. So I think that's probably all I have to say unless there's questions for me.
Carol, thanks for the help with that. One of the things I wanted to point out here is the quick turnaround for that. Once the board would approve that, if they approve those revisions to those regulations and they went through all the steps, that would become law immediately within a very short amount of time. So in a concern that I had to help schools prepare for that change, even though we've been working on these regulations for a long time, it still includes COVID and the struggles with those clinical sites in the past year. And with this consideration, I'd like to make a motion. And the motion that I would like to make is to make the implementation date for all revised education regulations effective January 1 of 2022. Some of the main concern with the letter was the immediacy of that. If it would happen and we would approve that as a board meeting at one of the meetings in this year, it would be effect immediately. So it would affect the pass rates and all the other pieces that go with that in 20 of 21. So to try to simplify that struggle a little bit, if we had an implementation date that we knew if they were passed, it would not become law until 2022. But that means we would have to ask Carol to put that with the regulations and send it back through. It should go through fairly quickly because all the grammar has been taken care of. It would just be, and all the subject matter, it would just be an implementation date, which is something that revised regulations sometimes have with it, but it would include all of the recommendations that we had for the new revisions. So that's the motion that I would put before the group to see if we could help in trying to stay in the flexibility, some flexibility for the schools. That was an effort to be somewhat flexible with knowing when the implementation date would happen, not just trying to guess when those would come through.
Patsy, if I may, I have a question.
Sure.
Would you be willing to consider, or would the committee be willing to consider instead of January, perhaps August? Simply because part of the other concern was not just the pass rate, but the 50% face-to-face. And I know that there's a lot of schools that are struggling still to get clinical sites, specifically in like specialized areas like ER, maternal child, ICU, those kinds of sites. Because, well, and I can only speak to what I've heard throughout from colleagues across the state is those specialized areas are it's really hard to get into. I know we discussed it some yesterday in meetings, but where facilities are dropping the student attendance to like 3 students. So I don't know if that would help schools prepare a little more of finding additional clinical sites or getting an increase in budget for additional adjunct or what have you.
Well, I appreciate the comments, but right now we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I apologize. I second that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second your motion, Patsy.
Okay, so now let's follow some more of the discussion that Christine has brought up. If there's some more discussion with this.
Patsy, would you just clarify for my thinking, if we accept this motion, what it does to the timeline for implement?
Okay, so
what do we have to go back through with the legislature again?
Carol, would you highlight that for me, Carol Moreland?
Sure. What we would do with every one of those regulations is there would be a clause put in there that this regulation would be implemented. I don't know the exact, I would have to check it out, but it would have an implementation date of January 1st, 2022. And that way, if it made it through this fall, maybe before, who knows, then it would be very clear that it would not be implemented until then. So the pass rates that would be affected would be the 2021 pass rates. Those would still be at 75%. And then all of the changes then on these revisions, if this is how you choose to go, would take effect on January 1st, 2022, or whatever date you put on it. But everything, all of those revisions would have to go back through the process because this would be added to each of the regulations. So there would be changes. So it would have to start all over. Now, hopefully, if that's the only change, it should go through fairly fast, but I make no promises. You know, kind of sometimes it's interesting to see the process, but I hope that answers your question. That's what would have to happen.
So it definitely would slow us down with implementation.
Yes, because some of those have already been approved. We're probably down to 3 regulations that I still have to make a few grammar changes for the Department of Administration. And then the rest of them have been approved by Division of Budget, and they've been approved by Department of Administration. What has happened is they have separated them out. They're not a bundle anymore. They're each treated individually. So it's been a nightmare trying to track all of this, but that's how they wanted to do it. So some of them have been through most of the process. But if we add that provision to each one, we will have to start over, which is that addition. But each regulation will have to start back through.
So I have a clarification question. Then it really, from what I'm understanding, it really applies to the 80% pass rate and the 50% direct patient care for the implementation date of 2022. Can those 2 pieces, since you said they have already been pulled out, does the entire package have to go back through, or can those 2 just be pulled back and go back?
If you don't make changes on the other ones and they've been already through, they would not have to go back through. It would just be, I'm trying to look here real fast. The pass rate one is in the reapproval, which is 60-2-102. And then I believe the clinical resources are where, yeah, I think the clinical resources in 60-2-105 is where you have the simulation, no more than 50%, and that's what they're asking about. So those 2, if you just attached that implementation date to those two definitely would have to go back through. And there might be 1 or 2 other ones that I'm still working on, but it would not be all of them unless you attach that implementation date to each one.
So in trying to address the concern from the community college presidents and the only flexibility that really could be would be the implementation date of when these would start. There can't be flexibility within the words that are in the new revised regulations. It says a certain pass rate, that's what it would be. The only flexibility that could come up with would be the implementation date. It does not have to be all of them, just like Dee asked, and Carol was wondering about the process. We've been at this process for at least 2 and maybe 3 years trying to get the changes through. It takes that long to do this. So no promises, but if we could do some implementation date where we actually had a time frame on that, and if we would have put a time frame on when we first sent these, we would have been way off the mark because it's taken that long. There's no way we would have put 4 years out, we would have implemented them. So I certainly don't have all the answers. That's why I wanted to bring it to the group for discussion. And the motion that I put forward was for all of the regulations in a total revision package. But Carol just explained they're not all in a bundle anymore. So if they come to us in pieces, the board is going to have to address them in pieces. Is that correct, Carol?
No, No, my hope is once they would get through the Attorney General's office and we did a public hearing, we can get them back together as a bundle.
Okay.
Unless you guys want them individually, but that's going to be a little bit more of a nightmare. But if you direct me to keep them individual, we can do that. Or if you want to see them as a bundle, to me, they make more sense reviewing them all together because one ties into the other. But we see it differently. Just please understand, we see it differently than Department of Administration and maybe Division of Budget and the Attorney General's office. We understand it a little bit differently. So it's just, I think, in how you look at them. But if you as a committee, if the board decides, because they'll go to the board, that you want them all to come to you in a bundle, then I will do them all in a bundle, starting with the public hearing. I would rather, I think on my part, when I go over to the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regs, I think I would rather do the bundle because I think it's a little bit easier to explain than this one this time and then these two next time. And I don't know.
I agree with that too. I just didn't know once they took them apart, if we had the power to put them back together. So in the simplicity,
I mean, taking them apart is actually the process of taking them through that agency. I hope that makes sense. But we as, if the board directs me to, I can put them all back together as a bundle before we do the public hearing.
I think you're right. I think they do make more sense in the bundle because one kind of explains the other one. I was just trying to work on the simplicity of it, whether the new revisions were all implemented at a certain time or not. We could separate out and not put a time frame on some of them, just on a few of them. But yes, they have to go back through the process. So trying really hard to honor the concern that is legit from those presidents that sent that note. We all are feeling the same squeeze, and Christina talked about some of those specific struggles. So the statute, the law, the regulations, the interpretation of the law is just something you can't ignore. It has to be something we follow to the last piece. So some more comments?
Could you help me understand? I think that what I'm hearing is that at this point, we would like to make it an amendment in terms of implementation date to those two that specifically talk about simulation time and pass rates. Is Christina, I believe that's what you had talked about as well, and Patsy, that's what you had said, but they'd still continue their process through the approval chain that they're doing now, just that those two could have delayed implementation.
My motion was for all of the revised regulations. So if we want to just do the two, we would have to vote on this and deny that and make another motion that would be for the two that we're speaking about. I'm just introducing the thought. We decide this as a group. So more discussion, but right now it stands for all.
And the rest of the ones that are going through, and pardon me for not remembering what they all are, because I just flat don't remember, but are any of them of sufficient disturbance to how a program runs at this point in time that it would be affecting the different programs?
Well, one of the biggest pieces is tied to the pass rate, which we're already talking about, because it puts some other steps in place for visits and how we would handle those. And the percent of that's the biggest one. Carol, some more regulation details?
Sure. If you just want me just to kind of go through the ones that you have revised and I'm working on, the approval procedure, and that's not going to change kind of based on, the pass rates and because that's an overview. And then the definitions, but I don't think any of that would change. I mean, there's a definition of simulation, But when you talk about the percentage of simulation, that's in a different one. And then you have the requirements for initial approval. So again, that shouldn't need the implementation date changed for it, because it's more of an overview of what do you actually need on the application and stuff like that. And then the reapproval requirements, that's the one that has the pass rates in it. So that's the one that would be affected. And then faculty and preceptor qualifications, that one would not be affected by pass rates or the simulation, the amount of simulation time. Curriculum requirements just basically talks about the curriculum, but that's not where you have the simulation in. The simulation comes in the clinical resources. So that would be the other one that you would probably want to attach this implementation date to push it out a little bit. And then one is educational facilities. That's just classrooms and all of that, which wouldn't be affected. Student policies, that would not be affected. And then the reports, this talks about your annual reports that you have to do. That should not be affected either. So I think there'd just be those two that would actually be affected by the pass rates or the amount of allowed simulation time.
So
I hope that answered your question, Karen.
So Patsy, what I think you're telling me is that if we believe that we should probably let everything else go through as it is and just pull out the two that need to have the delayed implementation date, that we would then, now I've got myself so confused in talking, but I think that's what we want to do. I think we kind of want them all to go through except for those two, and put the delayed implementation on those two. And I do need to tell you that I think that Christina probably has a point, that I think that if we're talking about the pass rates and the simulation, that we probably need to give them a little bit more time than the January, just because I don't know how long this is going to last, and how long people are going to be having to deal with these same issues. And I think the more support we can give to programs to help them be successful, the better off we are.
So Carol, we're still in discussion about the motion that's on the agenda, on the floor right now, with all of the revisions. But if we pull those two out and make those implementation dates, how would you get those bundled back together? Because they would be on two different timelines, right?
Well, what I would do is once they finish the Attorney General's office, I wouldn't do the public hearing until they all make it through. Because some of them can come through and be approved, and that doesn't mean I have to act on them right away, as long as we have a reason not to. So I could hold them if I'm directed by the board that you want them taken forward as a complete packet coming to you and going to public hearing and stuff like that. But can I just ask a question as a follow-up, just for me understanding, if you all changed it to maybe August 31st of 2022, I'm just throwing that out there. Okay, that would still impact your 2022 pass rates, which is, if you have a January 1st of 2022, that's going to impact your 2022 pass rates. So you just got to think about that. If you're not wanting it to impact the 2022 pass rates, then you're going to have to push the pass rate one out to 2023. I just want to make sure you're aware of that, because the pass rates are done on calendar years. And if you implement this in a calendar year, it's going to pick up the pass rates in that calendar year.
Thank you for that, Carol. I was thinking of cohorts coming through, and you're correct. We do not look at it in cohorts. We look at it in calendar years.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
So great discussion. I understand the struggle here. That's why I added it to the agenda, because it does need to be addressed and we need to do it collectively. Carol, if we could hold those up, is there a reason why we couldn't say that the board said we didn't want to put these in effect until a certain time that you would hold them? And we have to go through the implementation date through those channels. We could hold some up, but not all of them up. I'm asking again.
Okay, if I'll give you a couple of scenarios here. If you decide to put an implementation date on each of them, that you want to hold them out, okay, they all start back over through the process.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that is an easy way to get them back together as a bundle. However, that's not what you have to do to get them back together as a bundle. If some of them are already through, like Department of Administration, and I still have probably 3, I think, that has to go back through Department of Administration. So I could put those back through the Department of Administration and then make sure if you just wanted this implementation attached to those 2, then I could add it to those 2 and start those, the ones impacted, back through Department of Budget and starting all over with that. However, you know, if, and they, again, since they pull them apart, they progress through at different stages. And that's part of what I have to do, is just keep up with all of them and keep up with which ones need changes, which ones don't. It's a little bit more confusing, but you know, if the board tells me once they get through a department or Attorney General's office, we want you to do the public hearing with all of them as a bundle, then I will do that. We can do that, you know, and if the question's asked to me, you know, I think there's a very valid reason as to why you would want that done. You know, did that answer your question? I don't know.
Yeah, I just wondered if there was a way to not start them back to the process by us just delaying the hearing, as we could do with some of them, but not all of them. That's what I was asking, whether we would need to go back through that process.
Well, if you don't bundle them together and we do a hearing on some of them, then we'll do the hearing on some of them. I'll go over and present on some of them. Some of them would be implemented, and then we would still have others that were not, and that would be an option, you know, is to hold the ones that you didn't want implemented so soon and not put them through the process right away. I mean, that's another option if that's what you want to do. I don't know if that's going to be more confusing to the nursing programs if some of them go through now and some of them go through later. I don't know the answer to that. No.
Carol, if they all were to go through now, but the 2 of them with the delayed date, and I'm sorry, my ignorance of the legislative process, could they be written into the Nurse Practice Act with those caveats on there?
No.
Okay.
They have to be approved through the process that way. We can't make any changes to them once they've been through the process and you all have approved them. You can't send them all the way through the process and then it gets to you all as the final step and you say, oh, we want to add this to it. Okay, right. If you do that, you change it in any way, it starts all over again.
Right, and I got that, but I thought that you had said that most of them are far enough through the process that you think if we made this implementation time change, that they may be able to go through pretty quickly. I think I heard you say that.
Well, I don't know that I would say real quickly. You know, sometimes, and this is the part that is so, I don't know that I want to use the word frustrating, but it can go through an agency once and there's no problem. And it goes through again because of some minor little bitty change. And then there's all these changes that are wrong now.
Right.
And they were not wrong the first time, but they're wrong now. So we have to turn around and make all the changes. So to say that it's been through once, so it should go through fine, I can't say that. you know, you get different personnel in the agencies, so they see things a little bit different. I don't know. You know, there's no way to say, you know. I will do my best to get them through as fast as possible.
If it was an easy fix, believe me, in the conversations we've had around this, we would already presented a easy fix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Carol Bragdon, do you have some input here? You have some knowledge, longevity in the education system.
Well, I think it's a conundrum. Nice big word for it's a problem. I appreciate that the communities, you know, colleges have a concern, and it probably extends beyond them. How, you know, when I look back at the pass rates that we just looked at, the majority of our schools would not be affected because their pass rates are at national average or better. So how many schools are we really looking at? And would it really change for that many of them? You know, you know, and or are we just kicking the ball down the road a little bit? I guess is what I'm saying. Is, you know, is it really going to be any less painful in 23 than it is in 22? I don't have an answer. I'm just, you know, that's an issue that I see. We've had schools that have struggled, and I suspect they will continue to struggle. So they're going to be affected, but they're already affected. So how many, and without going to a different screen and moving things around, we might want to look to see how many fall in that 75 to 80 range now that would really be affected. You know, and then there's also the point that perhaps some of the schools that have been above 80 with their difficulties with COVID this past year may drop down. And that probably is a bigger concern. And it certainly does increase the workload for our board and our committee to make all those visits and, you know, working with schools to get things back on track. So I guess those are the issues that I see. I don't know if that helps for clarification of our thought process or just muddles it more.
No, I appreciate the input. One thing I appreciate about Carol is she says it like it is, right? But this is a conversation for all of us. So is some more input, some more questions? Somebody has a magic answer here?
No magic answers. I don't think any of us can come up with that. But I mean, I'm really conflicted, to be really honest with you. I mean, I give feedback from what I've heard, and, you know, and all the communications we've had across the state. But I mean, my gut, I understand. All of us have been affected by COVID. You know I struggled getting back into clinical sites and everything like that. But on the flip side, these regs have been in process for a long time. It's not like this is brand new and we didn't know it was coming. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, and that's kind of, I mean, for me, it's like I've been talking about the need for additional adjuncts for clinicals for a while, with knowing that, you know, classes that I normally would do simulation, I now can't. And you know, it's so I feel like it's a planning issue, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't have any good answers. I mean, I certainly understand, and I applaud them for, you know, reaching out and trying to be proactive, but I don't know.
Well, Patsy, what is your original motion again? Could you go back to that before this conversation?
I can. I move to make the implementation date for all revised education regulations effective January 1, 2022. Also, too, just remember our process here. This committee, whatever we do today, if we make a motion, if we continue with this and we send it up, it will go to the board tomorrow. the board has the ultimate decision here. So you have that also too, that some more eyes are going to look at this and okay it or not. And I'll give some background tomorrow when we give a report for the education committee to the board. So remember that process. Did that answer your question, Karen?
Yes, and so I guess just to be clear, if for some reason these don't make it through by January 1st, 2022, and poor Carol will be pulling her hair out by then if she's still dealing with it then, but what we're saying is that we don't want them to be implemented prior to that, but if they're implemented, we don't need to change anything again.
The reason I worded it like that was try to at least acknowledge the concern the presidents had in flexibility, the word flexibility. You don't have that word in the Nurse Practice Act. I mean, it either is or it isn't. The regulation says yes or no. I mean, there's a little bit of flexibility with May and whatever, but as far as the process, trying to, that everybody could count on the year of 22, every pass rate will be to this, and every standard that we have there, which is the simulation and all the rest, would be in effect then. Some more conversation. Dee, I see your microphone's off.
Sorry, I was going to say, I appreciate all the conversation. I do think this is a compromise. We can't change we don't want to change the regulations at this point, but I do think it does lend itself to an opportunity to give all programs a begin date and end date. Just like when students come into our program, there's a beginning date and an end date. So I think this is a nice piece of it. And Carol, I absolutely agree that these have been in process for many years and everybody's trying to get this gum off their shoe. But the reality is that we are, it gives everybody, I guess I'll just reiterate, it gives everybody the opportunity to plan ahead. I hope that they are out, and for Carol Moreland's sake, that they are out and done. But if not, as Karen indicated, then they would still be implemented in that 2022. I also really agree that it doesn't matter if we implement them in January or August or June, it's still going to affect those 2022 pass rates. So I guess I will just call for the question and we'll see where things go.
So with that motion that we have in the second and the discussion we've had, we can either vote, and if this is denied, then we can make another motion. And whether that could be another motion for just the two of those regulations, let the rest of them stand like they are. We could just do the two. And that would be two we'd have to put back through, with just the implementation date would be the only change that would be there. So any other discussion? I'm going to put this to a vote so we can move to the next step in this process. If there's more discussion, we're open to that. Okay, so a motion and a second for the implementation date for all revised education regulations to be effective January 1, 2022. Everyone in favor say yes.
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 So I guess we're going to have to raise your hand because I need to know who says yes and who doesn't. So we have 3 people that have said yes. Is that a quorum, Carol?
You have 6 voting members.
Yeah, so I haven't voted. My vote is to put all of them through so they're all together, but we understand what we're saying here, right? That all the revisions will have that date put on them. And those revised regulations, and they will go back through the process with the date attached to them, all of them. So once again, the people that are in favor of that, raise your hand.
I'll say yes.
That's 5 of us. So everyone opposed? Okay, so that motion carries. So we'll take that before the board tomorrow. There'll be more discussion and the final vote will be there. And we'll have to help those people through that process. So Chelsea, are you okay with that? Okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
Sorry for the struggle. I just needed some input. Some of those things we can figure out without a big bump in the road, but this was not one of those. So I appreciate the help. The next thing I have on the agenda is a 5-year legislative review. And we have those in the packet. This is in the rotation of the review of those regulations. Correct? So you have motions for those, Chelsea, right, for each one of those?
I do, yes.
So did everyone get a chance to look at those? I think most of them are about advanced practice, aren't they? Yes, Carol?
I just want to, the ones about discontinuing schools of nursing, there's discontinuing both the undergrad, the advanced practice, and the LMHT. You did not change any of these and make any revisions to these. So unless you want to, when you looked at these a couple of years ago or whenever we started this, you didn't feel like there needed to be changes. So that's a couple of them. Some of these are LMHT. As you get in, the 2 statutes are LMHT statutes. And then there's one about the requirements for the APRN refresher course. So none of these you made prior revisions to. I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Yeah, these aren't part of the bundle we were just talking about. So any other questions about this? If not, I'll have Chelsea read a motion for us.
Okay, I'll just start reading. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve KAR 60-1-103 as written as a part of the 5-year legislative review process.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Okay, Chelsea, next one.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve KAR 60-17-110 as written as a part of the 5-year legislative review process.
I can make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve KAR 60-17-111 as written as a part of the 5-year legislative review process.
I so move to accept.
I will second Amy Height.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve KAR 60-5-103 as written as a part of the 5-year legislative review process.
I'll make that motion. It's Karen.
I will second. This is Amy.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve KSA 60-4206 as written as a part of the 5-year legislative review process.
This is Amy. I will make that motion.
Okay, and I'll second it.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve KSA 65-4207 as written as a part of the 5-year legislative review process.
I'll make that motion. It's Karen.
This is Carol, I'll second.
That's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thanks, Chelsea. We're going to head into unfinished business, practice academic partnerships task force report. And that was in the on-site packet, the written report for that. Amy, were you going to talk about that?
Madam Chair, yes, I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I won't read the entire document since it's there for you and it's been on the on-site packet. I appreciate getting to work with Janelle on this and applaud a lot of her work. As you can see by the report, the charge we were given was to bring back data currently available on the practice academic partnerships. So Janelle and I met several times, as you can see by the dates and what we discussed at each one of those, and then came up with this report for the board. I think it's important that we look at the NSCBN policy on academic practice partnerships. This is a clinical opportunity for both the schools of nursing and the healthcare agencies to work together, and it's a benefit for the students. I won't read through all the NSCBN report there, but you can read through it. Key learning is important. I think as we did our different investigations with states that are allowing this, other universities and community colleges that are already doing this, there's a lot of communication necessary for the schools of nursing and the healthcare agencies to work together. There's a lot of communication for the students and the preceptors who will be doing these partnerships. The courses and the clinicals must still meet the student learning objectives, and that was a key important factor for all of them, is they still have to meet those learning objectives. And the preceptors can do some of the evaluations, whether it's a daily evaluation of the student, a weekly, a semester evaluation to show that they're meeting them. But in addition, the faculty members need the oversight of seeing that the students are meeting the learning objectives. Some are paid, so the clinical students are paid for their time completing their school clinicals. And one issue that was brought up is, does KSBN regulations allow for students to be paid to complete? And there's nothing in our regulations that say they cannot be paid. So that clarified that problem. The schools can set more rigid recommendations than maybe what the healthcare agencies have. So some require them to carry 2 badges, their student badge and their healthcare agency badge. Some want them in the school uniform, so their school colored scrubs. Others want them in their healthcare scrubs. So it's kind of up to the School of Nursing to decide which route they want to go. One benefit that was seen through COVID-19 is when schools of nursing weren't able to continue with live clinicals, these students were able to continue because they are employees of the healthcare agency. So same with weather. We ran into, if the school or if the university is closed because of weather or other reasons, the healthcare agency and the school can decide who sets the requirement. Because they're employees, if they're sick, it would fall under sick time, but they would have to make those clinical hours up. Some of the healthcare agencies, the way they set them up, may have hours greater than what's required for the clinical course they're enrolled in, and that's okay. They can do more hours, but they obviously have to meet whatever the hour requirements are for the school to pass that course. We also looked at AACN and other accrediting bodies as far as their recommendations. I know AACN has been recommending going to this model since 2016. They also have the article on advancing healthcare transformation, the vision for academic nursing. So this isn't new, while it's still fairly new for us to consider in Kansas. There's several publications out about it. So far, the majority of the schools that are doing these are getting 100% pass rate on their students. Now, what's to say these weren't stellar students who were already going to get 100% or a full pass on their first time with Nclex, but their data, they are collecting a lot of data. No one's been doing it for 5 or 10 years. So most are kind of 2 to 3 years worth of data on them. I like how one school made it out. It's a win-win-win. It's a win for the students because they're not going to be doing, 2 to 3 days of clinical hours or clinical days for school and then working 1 to 2 clinical days. And I think for the majority of our schools of nursing in Kansas, our students have to work to be able to go to school. So now they're not going to be struggling in school because they're working 2 shifts and going to school and doing clinical hours. So it is helpful for those students. They cannot work as a tech or a CNA and then finish their 7 o'clock a.m. shift and then go into clinicals for school. So there are requirements, time hour requirements, just like we say for our students, they can't finish a work shift. They are not techs or CNAs while they're doing this. They are working side by side with the nurse and doing the RN functions or whatever the clinical objectives for the course are. As far as I know, liability got brought up as a question when we discussed this at the last meeting in December. Again, because they are an employee of the healthcare system, the liability would fall there, but one facility made it very clear. They don't go and do anything without their precepting nurse. So they aren't even in the room getting the patient up out of bed without the nurse. They are side by side with them. Orientation time is much less when they go to work. And most facilities try to make their precepting nurse during their clinical hours, their precepting orientee nurse when they graduate. Some facilities make them sign an agreement that they will come to work for that facility. So that's one thing that needs to be stressed to the students if they are not planning to continue with employment at that healthcare facility, they would not want to do this. Selection, I know that was something we also considered is, this is a beneficial opportunity, but obviously not every student in every school of nursing is going to get this. But clinicals are a placement by placement for each student. And we can never guarantee from day to day that each student's going to receive the same clinical opportunities. I mean, you might be on labor and delivery and see 3 deliveries in one day, and you might go 3 days and have no deliveries. So, I mean, there's never a guarantee for any clinical, we need to meet the student learning objectives, but the actual live opportunities will change for each student with what they actually get to experience. Most of them, it's a win for the healthcare agency because they have new nurse hires that are already familiar with their EHR. They know the culture of the unit they're going to be working on, shorter orientation time, and it's a big win for the School of Nursing. One School of Nursing reported 4 less clinical groups that they had to staff with a faculty member full-time. So that's a huge cost savings for the School of Nursing. Now in Kansas, 20% of their total clinical hours can be precepted and you don't have to count their capstone course. So that's a beneficial cost savings for the schools of nursing. Most all of the facilities have at least faculty or adjuncts they hire that do check-in visits about once a week. And some even will use their full-time faculty who are maybe at that healthcare center with other clinicals. And when they get done with the day, they go check in on the students who are doing the precepted hours. Their hours are going to be much different than what we're used to in clinical hours. So they may not just be there on the same days because they work with the nurses on scheduling. So they may work nights, they may work weekends. And as most of us are finding, even pre-COVID, it's getting harder and harder to find clinical spots for our students. So this guarantees them a clinical spot. Towards the end of the report, we updated. So obviously states that have no regulations on precepted clinicals can do this more openly. With the 20% of precepted clinicals, it's still something that can be done. We just have to look at those overall precepted hours. It's getting more and more competitive to find the clinical placements. And if this helps with easing that, and especially last semester students, gives them the opportunity to work where they plan or complete clinical hours where they plan to go to work, it's a great benefit for the student. So I won't go into a lot more detail since the report's there for you, but I'll be happy. Janelle, if there's anything I missed on the highlight.
I think you covered everything pretty well. I will say too, the Kentucky experience is a little bit different, but I just wanted to bring that up because they have a great model, but it's very different, but they're the ones with the longest outcomes. They now have up to, I think, 192 participants in a year for those that are graduating, and they are still at 100% pass rate at this point. But those represent, several different schools as well, but I just wanted to bring that up as well, but otherwise good.
I had a question. Wouldn't this go against our regulation that they can't be an employee while doing clinical?
So the big thing is making sure it differentiates when they're a student doing their student learning outcomes and clinicals versus working for the facility as a tech or CNA. So it's very important that we differentiate those roles, and when they're there as a student, that they are strictly following the student role.
It's very similar to what they currently do when you have someone who's doing a clinical, student clinical in the place where they work. So there's the recognition, and that's why a lot of schools do ask them to wear their school uniform when they're precepted hours, and they wear their work uniform when and they do not wear their student badge during those times. So the only time they wear their student badge and student scrubs are during their precepted hours. Otherwise, they are an employee, and it's the same separation of employee versus student role.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that question, Christina, because that's what I was confused about as well. Because I thought, and I was trying to quickly look back, that I thought that there was a program even today that needed to have a clarification as an opportunity for improvement. So I think that's going to be something that if this moves forward, and I do appreciate all the work you guys have done on this, because what neat opportunities that it could provide to our students. But I feel like that could be a confusing piece for all programs as we move forward. The second comment that I would say is clinical contracts. And that was an area that I was cited with our program, in that our clinical contracts needed to be clarified so that they absolutely had different roles. And so we're in the process of doing that through legal review. And so now I'm feeling like we're going to need to go back and be a bit more vague on that. Am I understanding that correctly, though?
Well, I would say that most of them, when they do something like this, are putting in their memorandum of understanding or their contract. It's still the same separation of a student in a student role, and they're not staffing for them. So when they're there in their precepted role, they are there with a preceptor who is functioning as a preceptor, not a staff nurse. So they are still the same clinical requirements that we have in our regs still apply. So your language would just have to be clear that even though the relationship there might be, it's more expanding the opportunity into more precepted hours for some. It depends on with our limitation, it may not change it a lot. Just something like this may not change it a lot because they're still providing preceptor experiences. They still have to have the preceptor qualifications. So they still have to meet all of our regulations. It just changes the fact that outside of their clinic, and that they can get clinical hours. They can pay them for being there for a certain number of hours. The pay kind of is separate, but when they're there as a student, they are under the student learning outcomes with a preceptor, with the faculty oversight. So I don't know if that helps, but it does, it's still a separation of student role and employer role. And when they're there as a student, the student role applies versus the employer role. I don't know if that helps clarify, but it little, you just have to make sure that it is clear and that the students are clear on that, just like we do now with when you work at a facility. You can't wear your student badge. You can't present yourself as a student nurse. You are there as an employee, as a patient care technician, or whatever the title is when you're there as an actual employee. I hope that clarifies.
So the request for the task force was to bring back information around this thought or possibility. So where does the team, where are we going from here with this?
So this would have to, I mean, is this, I'm confused. Do we need to have like a motion or anything that schools can do this? Or is this just for schools, this is an opportunity that you can utilize?
I think,
So
go ahead, Amy.
Oh, as Janelle and I kind of finished up our information to bring back to you guys, she believed as long as the schools are following the current regulations, this is already something allowed because we can have up to 20% precepted outside of our capstone. It would only have to come to the board for approval if it went beyond the 20%.
Okay, that makes more sense. So hypothetically, if I had a facility that wanted to hire my students for part of their clinical in conjunction of them working there after they graduate, then I could go ahead and set that up if that situation came across.
And if there are questions, and what a lot of them are doing, a lot of what I found in talking with boards is that a lot of the schools came and facilities came to the board to make sure they were involved in the communication process, to make sure the contracts they put together, that what they're putting together stays within regulations. So it's not something that, like I said, it's not a regulation change that you have to deal with from a motion perspective. But I think what most boards of nursing said is we'd like to be involved. We'd like to see how it progresses. We'd even like reports back. I mean, you can ask them to do that as part of that process, but it is up to the schools and the facilities to make sure they're within regulation. And if we would find out, if they don't include us and we would find out it's not, that could be problematic. But I think the point was to bring the information that it really already exists in a lot of places. We have a lot of current partnerships that are already in place. They are just, the student is not an employee. And in some of these cases we just talked about, they are employed as volunteer, I should say, but they become a member of this, as an employed staff person, then they can continue to go to clinical. That was part of the win-win, is that then they were not treated as only students and they were still allowed to continue clinical. So yeah, so that it is a matter of, I don't know that it's a motion necessarily, but we do want to make sure we encourage, as more schools might be looking at this and more facilities. There are some great relationships out there that already utilize something very close to this, and it's managed within the regulations. So I think that was just a point to be made. And there is, I think, an advantage to be shown with that.
Well, there's definitely some specific things in that contract that needs to happen. And most of the time those contracts go to lawyers if you're going to rewrite one. Right. And so that would be, the first place you want to start with your school to see if that's going to be okay with the school. The liability piece was something I wrote down on my paper before you got to that, Amy, because that's huge. They're going to want to know about that. Every program will have to decide for themselves. I'm a control freak, so it's kind of hard for me to let loose of that a little bit. I want to make sure it's done the way I want it done. So I guess we just thank you for the information and we go from here and we move on to the next agenda piece.
Patsy.
Yes, sorry.
Patsy, this is Carol Bragdon. I guess I would like the minutes to somehow reflect some of our discussion. And in looking back, sometimes we can't track what we've done very well. So for that, I'm thinking we should probably somehow link tracking for schools who choose to do this to the annual report that they do or something, so that we can monitor this. Because I do think I think it's a great idea. I think there's some pitfalls along the way that we could encounter if we're not a little more proactive in how we monitor it. So that would be my recommendation, that perhaps we accept the report, via a motion, and direct Janelle to somehow keep track of it. But, perhaps a question on the annual report, because we asked for, hours, precepted hours, and a variety of things. You could add in a question, something about an academic business partnership as part of your clinical precepted hours, or something like that. Otherwise, I think we're going to be lost. What did we decide we're going to let them do? And I think we're going to be in a muddle. So I would like to perhaps draw a motion, maybe. Does that make sense, Patsy?
It does. The next thing on the agenda is an annual report. We're talking about changing that format, and we did not add anything to that. So that would be another discussion we would have to have around that. Is that correct, Carol?
Yes, I mean, if you're wanting to add something, yeah.
Hey, Patty, can you do me a huge favor?
So maybe if we don't tie it to the annual report, we have some kind of reporting system. I think that is a great idea. So we can kind of keep track of where we're at and where we need to go, or if we need to make changes in our decision. I don't know if the annual report is that place right now. Maybe it will be, but some kind of reporting mechanism.
Something. Yeah. Something to track.
So do we need a motion for that, or can we just do that internally? What are we doing here?
Well, I'll make the motion that we accept with gratitude the work of the subcommittee on the academic business partnership, and request that our educational specialists recommend a means of tracking. And we should probably let schools know that it's something that we are certainly allowing or considering. So allow her to communicate that appropriately.
Okay, so the motion, so Chelsea can get that typed in there correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what do you have there, Chelsea, and we'll help you.
I have, let's see. I move to request the education specialist recommend a means of tracking for, and then I was going to use the term practice academic partnerships. And that's as far as I got.
Okay. I would put in the first part, Chelsea, that we accept the report of the subcommittee. Okay. So that gets it into the minutes.
Okay.
And we're putting this task on the compliance officer, correct?
It seems like that kind of falls there, unless somebody's got a better idea. Sorry, Janelle.
I think that's right.
It's okay. So I think what a couple of places have done is they've done that. They've asked schools, just as a request, if they're involved in this, to please include the Board of Nursing and reporting and outcomes, just to keep everybody in the loop. And I don't think that's been an issue.
Okay, so one more time, let's try. Chelsea, you want to read your motion?
Sure. Let me just make one quick change here.
Sure.
I move to accept the report regarding practice academic partnerships of the subcommittee and request that the education specialist recommend a means of tracking for these partnerships.
I'll second that motion.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks, Amy and Janelle. Okay, due to another committee meeting coming up after this, I need to move and we need to be done by 12:20 today so the C&E committee can meet. So let's go to the annual report, and Janelle, can you give us a quick overview of what that is? And it does not have a motion tied to it. It's just information sharing. So if you can give a quick review of that.
Sure. So in December, the board approved the change to a new annual report template for the nursing programs and to utilize as its base the NCSBN core data template, which is what is in your packet, what that looks like. The new template allows for the collection of the core data and will help lead to a national database regarding key data that will impact undergraduate nursing programs. The core annual data is all based on those findings from the National Delphi study that was done by NCSBN and reflect the outcomes for key indicators of that study. These were also the basis for the program approval guidelines that came out last year. So the core data is the only new data that will be part of the report. And some of that data is not necessarily new, but it may be a new way of asking it in a way that we have not asked before. And so I just wanted to emphasize that everything else that's in there is what we've always had on our annual report. It may look a little different in the way it's asked, but it will not reflect anything new except for that core data. Additional questions that we've requested, the way that will be managed is all the core data will come first. Additional questions by us that are based on regulations and the Department of Education will come next. And then one of the things to emphasize is that this is the NCSBN template was made for undergraduate programs. So what we have done, they've worked with us on for the graduate programs, we will still be able to do. But what it will be is any school that has an undergraduate program and a graduate program it will be on the same report. So all the graduate section will come at the end after all the undergraduate section is completed. So one report will go to the school and then either graduate or undergraduate, they have the opportunity to fill it out, save it. It's easily saved and then submitted when both parties are done with it, and it will come as one report. NCSBN will do all the analysis of the core data, and that will all come to us, but we will still get the core data, but we will also get the data on our other questions that will come directly from them. So there will still be some compiling on our part, but it will be a lot easier with those core data than relegated to them. So the one place that there might be some questions, we're going to have orientation for this new process in probably mid-April. We're getting that set up right now. We will have an NCSBN representative who will be at those meetings as well. And we will talk about the changes to that report and those orientations. So I think I will leave most of that for the orientation, but that's the plan. And we will even add an additional orientation if we need to, because this is new. That came up yesterday with our some of the committee that we're meeting. So those will be coming out hopefully this week in terms of meeting schedule for those orientation for the new annual report. So that's what I have, Patsy.
Okay, so just reiterate, it's the core data plus the annual report information that we've been doing all along. So there's not anything added to it except
There's
that.
nothing new.
Okay. Any other input we need there? Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to go to the next one then, the fall 2021 site visit, virtual or in person. We need some discussion regarding that. I think we decided last meeting that we would decide at this meeting what it looked like for fall. Are we leaving that open? The schools get to pick? Are we going to do in person unless the numbers climb? What's the flavor?
You will also have June to make any changes if you want to as well. We only have one more scheduled until September, and it's already virtual.
So any conversation here?
It seems like a lot of, I know we're going face to face more so in Johnson County area and Casey Metro, but I mean, with the vaccinations and everything like that, but I don't know. Janelle's the one that's at all these. I just kind of feel like I'll follow whatever she tells me to do. That's what I do.
I have ACE and fall visit this 2021, and I just heard from them, and they're planning on doing that in person.
Yeah.
Unless the numbers rise. So I guess we can wait till June to make final decision. Might just be keeping it in your mind so we can discuss that. Any other questions we have there? I'll move on to the next agenda item. Trying to help the group that's headed to the next committee meeting right away, get to that with a little break. So 2021 nursing and MHT program site visit schedules.
I just have one really quick. There've been some changes in the schedule since that was printed. And so I will just say, I'll be contacting the board members that are currently scheduled to confirm dates and schools because of the changes, and anyone that I don't have scheduled, I'll be in contact with them about helping out with that schedule.
Okay, appreciate that. Any questions? Then let's move on to the petitions. Request for petitioners due 12/31/20 to extend their completed clinical observation. Okay, Janelle, I'm going to ask you to talk about this quick too.
I will. We had a request from 3 petitioners that were due to complete on 12/31 and extend the time to complete that. These were 3 that had all their conditions completed, most of them well ahead of the December date, except for the clinical. 2 of those 3 had set times to do their observation, and then the clinical site backed out. So I had 2 that were three of them who were doing that, 2 of them who actually had clinical sites and just got shut down. And so having looked at that and realizing that this is the group most impacted by the clinical shutdown because it's been shut down most of the year that they would have had, the request is to extend the clinical time for these 3 folks that finished everything else to June 30 of 2021. So that is the request on the table. Questions?
So Janelle and I have already visited about this. And one of the questions that I had, have any of those petitioners already went ahead and scheduled some clinical time knowing, I mean, did they go ahead and make reservations for that, knowing the decision would come from here, whether we allow that or not? Did they already, were they aggressive enough to try to get that going to follow up with that? And she said there was one person that did do that. The other 2 had not yet.
I do have one that has already started and I think maybe finished by now. One who has tentative permission from if they get a go ahead that they will have it. The other one is still unsure. So I do have 2 that made that commitment and went ahead.
So those of you that are on the committee, real quick, the history for this is we used to get to the education committee and we would have petitioners that would want to have permission to retake their board. And we would go through an hour and a half, person by person, and never had any much consistency with how we treated each petitioner. Everything was a little bit different. And so we put up a format and a sequencing and some guidelines for these petitioners to follow through. So when it came to us, they had either met those requirements or not. And so the decision was a little easier for the team to make. So individualizing it out and making changes for certain conditions, whatever those were, is something that we tried to move away from because it was just so cumbersome. And we had a really hard time being very consistent at that process. So that's why we went to this format. Having said that, though, understanding the struggles we had as schools trying to get people in clinicals, I understand why these persons had trouble getting a contract going with some individual to be able to get this done. Now, maybe they waited till the last month, but I'm just saying they have had several months to take care of this. So what is the group? What's the flavor here? You want to extend the time, or you think we should just leave it as is and we're done, covert or not, or what?
This is Carol. I think we ought to give them at least 3 months to finish up.
I agree. I mean, they have not been able to do the clinical sites. No one's would be willing to let them in. I think we need to give them the opportunity to do it.
Okay, so we have a motion here, but we don't have a date on there. So 3 months from when? I mean, suggestion?
Did they have an end date before Janelle, what was their end date? I'm
The-
sorry, I missed that.
Their end date was December. The request, because we're just doing this now, was to give them until, the request was for till June 30th. Now you can change that, but so it'd be 3 months from this decision.
I
I think that's fine.
Okay, Chelsea has a motion, so I'll let her read that.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to extend the time to complete the clinical observation for petitioners due December 31st, 2020 until June 30th, 2021.
I can make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thanks for that work with that.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda, the last is petition for permission to retest 11/8 to 2/18/21.
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea. Would you like me to go ahead and read that motion?
Yeah, so these people have gone through the process that we put in place, and Janelle's helped walk them through that, and they have completed all those pieces. So these names here are ones that completed that, and we're giving them permission to retest. So thank you. Yes, Chelsea.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the petition for permission to retest summary from November 18th, 2020 through February 18th, 2021, which includes Arwa Bashir, Connie Batorf, Diana Oliveris, and Jessica Schroeder.
I can make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? Okay, that motion carries. It looks like the next thing is anything we need to put on the agenda for 2021. I guess the discussion about site visits.
And the task force, the algorithms on site visits will come back.
Put those on there. Anything else? Okay, thanks for the help today. I know this is endurance. Education committee always is. And this really wasn't supposed to be a long meeting, but we're finishing up pretty good. So I appreciate the help. So we give the others a break. So I guess I need a motion for an adjournment. And Chelsea doesn't have one of those. So we don't need a motion. We can just go.
Right.
We can go. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for your help today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patsy.
Thank you.